Hello, everyone. I'm George Sewell from Swinging for the Fences. I'm honored to be joined here with my mentor, one of my many mentors, good friend of mine, Justin Shakil. Justin, thank you for joining the show. How are you doing today?
Doing great, George. I come to you from the wonderful confines of my car. I'm in the midst of my holiday shopping. There are two things that I procrastinate on these days. One is packing for road trips, and the other is waiting till the last minute to do some Christmas shopping. So here we are. I hope you're doing well, though, and thanks for having me.
I am doing well. We're a few days away from Christmas, so we're really in the swing of the holiday season here. But definitely, we just finished the winter meetings with baseball. Some big dominoes have already fell in terms of free agency, but the Yankees really haven't done any major moves yet. Of course, they've done a few necessities, which I think a big necessity was re-signing Amed Rosario. Get him who can hit left-handed pitching really well in a lefty heavy lineup. Also bringing back Paul Blackburn, but there haven't been any major moves yet. Obviously, the elephant in the room being Cody Bellinger. We really haven't heard anything on him. Now, do you think that's just him being a Boris client and Boris always waiting for the biggest number to come and waiting usually till January, maybe even February? Or do you think there's something else going on with Cody Bellinger?
I think that's part of it, George. I think you're hitting in the right areas, but I also believe that Cody Bellinger's market is partly going to be determined by what Kyle Tucker does. So Kyle Tucker is not a Scott Boras client, and
Mhm.
I feel like they're going to have to wait for Kyle Tucker to choose his next destination and kind of see where that leaves Cody Bellinger in the market for him after that. So I think Kyle Tucker is going to sign first. I think that has to happen first in order for Cody Bellinger's market, again, tying in Scott Boris's angle. Really, any agent is doing its due diligence in a situation like this. But I feel like Cody Bellinger's final market won't present itself until Kyle Tucker has his next home.
And you don't see Kyle Tucker coming to the Yankees, right?
I, at this point, it wouldn't shock me either way. It really wouldn't. I thought during the season, when you looked ahead as to what they could possibly do to address an outfield need, I thought Kyle Tucker made a lot of sense. I still think he does make a lot of sense, and I can see the reasons why people maybe feel like he isn't a perfect fit for the Yankees. And you could say the same thing about Cody Bellinger. This free agency stuff doesn't come with instructions, George. So
Yeah.
you're taking a gamble any which way you go. I would say never on
Yeah.
Kyle Tucker, and I would say the same with Cody Bellinger. I don't think the Yankees are alone for Cody's services. Obviously, it's well documented that he enjoyed his first season with the Yankees, and I think there are a lot of people who hope it's the first of many to come, and some they may see potential red flags in giving a player like that a long-term deal. All viable, all could be true. Uh, all also could turn out to just be things that you often have to not worry about, but often have to ask yourself the hard questions when it comes to free agency. You have to look at it from two different angles, and there are pros, there are cons. I think there are pros and cons with both players.
And I definitely think one of the biggest deciding factors is Steve Cohen and the Mets. If the Mets are really going to go out on Cody Bellinger, I think the Yankees have to ask themselves, are they willing to get into that bidding war over a player like Cody Bellinger? Now, Cody Bellinger is definitely a fantastic player, but if this is of course a hypothetical situation, we have no idea if this would play out, but if the Mets are going higher and higher with Cody Bellinger, are you going to keep doing the dance with Steve Cohen? Are you going to really fight that hard for a guy and compete with the money? Because I do see Cody Bellinger, even as a Yankee fan, I see him as a perfect fit for Queens. He could go in there. He could play center field. He could play first base on days they don't want Polanco playing first. They want to move him around. He's so versatile, Cody Bellinger, and that's what separates him from Kyle Tucker because you're getting plus defense at all three of the outfield spots and first base. And he's not going to cost $400 million. It's going to be a decent contract, but for teams that like the Mets that don't want to necessarily bring in another huge contract, and the same could be said about the Yankees because both of those teams have plenty of sizable contracts. Cody Bellinger fits the mold perfectly. You get an elite player, you get elite defense, you get the definition of consistency at the plate, but you are not breaking the bank and bringing in a Kyle Tucker type of contract.
I think the point that has to be made with Cody Bellinger is that he is a fantastic baseball athlete.
Yeah.
He's a very skilled baseball player, high baseball IQ. There's he is a prototypical baseball player. I think the big red flag against Cody Bellinger is the fact that he has not put together a season like he just had in 2025. He hasn't put them together consistently for a number of years, pre-COVID now.
Yeah.
So many wonder, well, who is this player? Is this an inconsistent, great baseball athlete that we're looking at here? And I think that's part of the reason why teams could get scared off by Cody Bellinger because he is at an age now where he's going to be commanding a long-term deal, and they're worried about getting burned on the back half of that deal. Now, the argument that you could be making here, if you are the Yankees, is that you are in this finite window now where Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole look like they could be, and we're only going on off age here, age and history, right? I don't think even as good as they are, it's tough to defy father time. So are they on the back half of their primes? They probably are. What does that mean? It means that you can probably have a decrease in performance at any point now, and it can't shock you. I mean, they're both in their mid 30s, and you have to maximize the window that you still have here. So, does that mean if you go 5, 6, 7 years for Cody Bellinger, can you stomach the amount of money that you would likely have to swallow for a player that won't be as good in that time? By the time that period rolls around, well, you're off also probably out of the prime peak years of Aaron Judge and Garrett Cole. So I've been at this for a number of years now. You have to absolutely leave no doubt. You have to maximize the Aaron Judge window, the Garrett Cole window. It unfortunately hasn't happened for the Yankees in terms of winning a world championship in this window so far, but you're still in that period where I feel you have to leave no doubt. What does that mean? Does that mean going for the slightly younger player in Kyle Tucker? Does it mean that you're going to double down on the type of season that Cody Bellinger just gave you and you plug and play and you don't have to worry about him? Or maybe you do, because again, the consistency is, I think, something that holds up a lot of critics and potentially a lot of executives. So it's complicated. This is a layered offseason in terms of filling that final outfield spot for a team like the Yankees. And like you were mentioning with the Mets, oh yeah, they have company in this competition. So it's very layered. It's very complex.
Another team too that they have company with both of these guys is the Blue Jays.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the Blue Jays could go get Kyle Tucker or Cody Bellinger. I mean, this is a team that was just in Game 7 of the World Series. They were right there with the Dodgers. That could have been their trophy. Matter of inches that play at home plate. So this is a team, the Blue Jays, I feel like, who are right there at the doorstep of a championship. So a move like this would catapult them to the top. Now that's also saying that they possibly bring back Bichette because he's not on the roster. He's still floating around the free agent market. But the Yankees, it's not them versus Boris. It's them versus Boris, and it's them versus the Mets. It's them versus the Blue Jays. I've heard the Dodgers waving around there for Bellinger, even though I really don't think that's going to happen. But there's a lot of teams, and the thing with the Blue Jays that kind of scares me as a Yankee fan is all of these American League East teams, they're hungry right now. It's not only the Blue Jays anymore. It's the Red Sox who are putting themselves in contention. They just made a pretty big trade last night for Wilson Contreras, which strengthened up their lineup. The Orioles signed Pete Alonso kind of out of nowhere. We heard their names a little bit, but did we really expect them to make a move for Pete Alonso? Absolutely not. The Rays are getting crafty, even though they're not going to sign the big names. They're being the typical Rays, and they're going to make these smart trades. They're going to be a pitching factory and a young talent factory. So I really do think the Yankees need to do something, but the thing that is just concerning me is the amount of reports saying that they want to keep the payroll under 300 million, and what I'm looking at this team. If you bring back Bellinger hypothetically, there's nothing different from this roster compared to last year, where you were an ALDS exit. You compound that with the fact that every other team in your division has been making significant moves. Do you think there's a reason for Yankee fans to have a little bit of concern with all this now being said?
I mean, I think it's natural for fans to feel this antsy when they're looking at every other team in the American League East making these moves, and the Yankees kind of waiting in the low end right now. Like you talked about, Blackburn coming back. You talked about some of the small moves that they made. Ahmed Rosario, obviously Trent Grisham coming back on the qualifying offer. Yarbrough, Tim Hill, they're returning. You're waiting for the big splash that you're hoping a team like the Yankees makes, and then simultaneously while you're waiting for that, you see a lot of talented names entering the AL East, and you're wondering, okay, when are we going to join the party? And start to lead again by the moves that we make. And to that, I would say you're still really young in the off season. I mean, a lot of the big chips have not fallen yet, so it does require patience. I think the storyline about where the payroll will be at. Look, where they are at right now, a few days before Christmas, is in a very different place compared to where they will be in mid-February when they report for pitchers and catchers. And that team is going to be very different from what team takes the field on opening day in late March in San Francisco. So all that to say, these things take time. It's tough to develop patience as a sports fan. I understand that because I go through it with my teams. But also, we also heard reports that they were in on Michael King and Imai from Japan, and we later come to know that they never even made an offer to Michael King, and now we're hearing more of a disconnect between them and Imai. So all these reports are just reports. They're not fact. They're not anything that's written in stone. So I would kind of take a look at the payroll story in the same prism. Believe what you want at this point in mid to late December, but it won't matter until they get to spring training, and it certainly won't matter until the opening day. So it's definitely a period that requires patience, and I understand that's really hard, but that is what is required at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think definitely too, I know Brian Cashman, he loves to say this, but getting a player back from injury is almost like making a trade or a signing. And obviously Garrett Cole's going to be back, but the thing with Cole is he's not going to be opening day ready. He's not going to be March ready. He's not going to be April ready. Probably what am I hearing? Like back he's going to be pushed back. He's not going to be ready for maybe the end of the first third of the season, Garrett Cole. And now also to compound that, Carlos Rodon out of nowhere had surgery on bone spurs. So he's going to
Mhm.
miss a little bit of time. I don't think really he's going to miss the same amount of time as Cole. I don't know what you're hearing on that, but if you're the Yankees, obviously the news that Garrett Cole will be back in 2026 is fantastic. This is one of my favorite pitchers I've seen watch. But the thing is, you're going to be down him and Carlos Rodon, and Rodon finally put it together this year for the Yankees. Really lived up to that contract, was a bulldog this year with Max Fried in that rotation. You're going to be down both of them. So I do think, as much as we love talking about Bellinger and improving this lineup, I think the urgency should be with the starting pitching because you're down Rodon, you're down guys, and it's great that we have Cam Schlittler who really showed up in the postseason. He's going to be a stud, but going into opening day, your rotation, it's weak. It's Freed, it's Heel who's up in the air. It's Will Warren, who I think really can be good. I think he just needs to fix some things. Maybe come time he works in Tampa another offseason with Matt Blake. Same goes for Heel. They could turn into something. Cam Schlidler, Ryan Yarbrow's going to have to be in that conversation for the rotation. And I don't know what you think of this too, but a guy whose name I really love is Elmer Rodriguez Cruz coming in from AAA. These are all great names to talk about, but do you feel that if the Yankees want to be competitive, they do need to try and add another consistent guy, a quality starter that they could trust, not a fingers crossed on Luis Seal, a fingers crossed on Will Warren, hoping that Ryan Yarbrough can swing it for a month and a half. Elmer Rodriguez Cruz, even though who I think could be a big contributor, I feel like I don't know if you agree with me that they need to add another arm to this rotation.
Yeah, I think this is the part of the Yankees needs that I'm locked into more than any other because I would be surprised if they go through the offseason and didn't make a big starting pitching acquisition. And I think it'll happen via trade.
Yeah.
Where it comes from, I'm not sure, but I think they will look to improve the rotation with a trade, give up some of the assets for a name pitcher or a pitcher that they feel can bring a lot to the rotation. And I say that because they're going to need time, especially in the front end of the season. We saw it last year. We've seen it multiple seasons. When Garrett Cole didn't start the season off in 2024 with them, the rest of the rotation picked it up. We've seen certain situations like that play out over the last couple of years. They're going to need innings to be eaten in the first third of the season, and then after that, look, you talk about Cole and Carlos Rodon, and I don't want to sound the alarms off, but I actually think I'm more comfortable with Garrett Cole's impending return more than Carlos Rodon's. And I say that because bone spurs kind of scare me in a pitching sense. It might take a pitcher uh, a long while to kind of get his bearings under him and figure out how to command the baseball and just have that precision that he did before getting the elbow cleaned, the procedure cleaned out, the bone spurs taken out. I think we saw it with Masahiro Tanaka when it happened with him. With Tommy John surgery, I think there's a two-prong approach to this when it comes to Garrett Cole. One is making the return. You're fully confident that he's going to make it. But then again, there's that time factor. It takes a certain period for a pitcher coming off Tommy John surgery. We've seen it time and again now where you need to kind of iron everything out and get your feel back and shake off rust. It's a big combination of those things, and it takes a good chunk of time. Now, I think if we're just lining everything up, it feels like it'll be enough time for him to find himself
Yeah.
once we're ready to go for the postseason. And I think that's by design. And I think we saw that with certain playoff teams and their injured pitchers this past season, most notably the Blue Jays. So they
Yes.
had pitchers coming back from injury and the timing just worked out perfectly. I don't think that happens by accident anymore. So I think you could see something similar with the Yankees and how they approach the return for some of these pitchers. That includes Clark Schmidt as well. But I don't know, for this day and age, for whatever reason, George, the bone spurs for a pitcher actually scares me a little bit more. I shouldn't say scare, but it would cause me to have a little more uh, lower expectations for a pitcher returning from a bone spur procedure than it actually would from a pitcher recovering from Tommy John.
I mean, there's definitely more known about Tommy John now. I mean, I feel like everyone and their mom gets it once in a point now in their baseball career. Cole also got the internal bracing, which is also something to note because that should help him come back, shake off that rust a lot more sooner. The thing I'll know with Rodon too is historically, because if you flash back to the first year we got Rodon, he had that, I believe it was a shoulder strain. It took him a little bit to come back from injury.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a guy that when he has time away from the mound, you mentioned shaking off the rust with Cole. I think Rodon has his own hurdle to jump when it comes to shaking off the rust. So I think that adds to the little bit of concern. Now, you mentioned them trading for a starting pitcher, and I do see that happening. I could see them trading for someone who's either still on their rookie contract or they have an arbitration number that is relatively low. These are guys like Mackenzie Gore, Edward Cabrera, Erie Perez. Those are kind of the three names I've been tossing around in my head a little bit. All three of those guys have shown flashes in the big leagues. Some of them, especially like Erie Perez, have really showed us something. Edward Cabrera hasn't panned out. Mackenzie Gore, a huge pitching prospect, was in the Juan Soto trade from San Diego to DC. Hasn't showed it yet, but these are all guys that are intriguing because they have the prospect pedigree. They've had some solid starts at the big league level, and I feel like we don't know what the Yankees want to do in terms of payroll. Like you said, it's all up in the air. But if they want to take a low risk, high reward deal, I feel like these are just the guys they could do that on. If they want to take a flyer on them, if they want to get them, fly them into Tampa, put them in the same room with Matt Blake, have him work on their arsenal, their mechanics, whatever their problems may be, because these are going to be pitchers that I could see having a good career, but they're not finished products yet. If the Yankees believe they could finish them, if they could really weld them into good starting pitching, and the Yankees actually have been for the past couple years producing good starting pitchers, I really think that that's the move that would be done. Not a signing like Imai coming overseas from Japan. Nothing crazy, but almost like a hidden gem that Brian Cashman finds, a name that we do relatively know, but someone that we really just flip the switch on and we really turn them into something beneficial for this rotation.
Yeah, I think they could definitely swim in waters like that. I also could see them taking a flyer on a trade, not even a flyer, but trading for someone who maybe has a year left to go on their deal before they hit free agency, a Joe Ryan type who maybe offers a little bit more experience, can probably increase the likelihood that he'll be able to eat up innings,
Yeah,
less of a risk in that area because I think that's what they ultimately need right now is a solid pitcher that could eat up innings and maybe not lead by example, but this without Rodon, without Cole, I know you have Freed, but largely this is an inexperienced young rotation, which could be fine for
yeah,
sure. But you talked about it. You have Will Warren coming back. He made a league high in starts. You wonder what the ripple effect will be for that. Will he continue on the same path? Will will he have a sophomore jinx, so to speak? But how will he? Basically, what I'm trying to say is how will he bounce back? How will he respond from such a big workload in 2025? Cam Schlittler looked terrific when he was on the mound. There's more information on him out there.
that's
The
true.
word is out. How is he going to adjust from the adjustments that teams around the league will ultimately and inevitably make for him? Luis Heel, yeah, jury's still out. He was coming back from a serious injury. I don't think he had his had himself fully. I don't think he had his bearings fully under him. What could that look like in 2026? So there are question marks, and this happens every year. There are question marks over every single pitcher. You wonder how they will proceed, whether they go one way or the other. Um, I think and when I say they, the Yankees, I think they probably want uh, a, a pitcher who doesn't present as much risk as they already have on their pitching staff for 2026.
Yeah, I think that you definitely hit the nail on the head right there. One thing too with Will Warren and Luis Seal, I feel like these guys could be really good out of the bullpen. I feel like Will Warren's someone you can have take like a Luke Weaver role. I think Luis Seal, the big thing with him, he was holding something back, I feel like, velocity wise. Because you look in his rookie season and he was throwing fireballs left and right. His fastball was electric. That's what he led with. But now you look at last year, it feels like he was holding back. He was throwing 93, 94, which is not what we were used to seeing. And this is a guy, Luis Seal. Oh, you're flipping around over there. There you
Oh,
go.
there we go.
This is a guy, Luis Seal, who, even in his rookie season, when we saw him at his peak, was only going 5 innings at most. This is a guy who was always a marathon for him to get to five. If you put him in the bullpen, you tell him you're going in for 1 inning, leave it all out there, pump all the juice you want. You have no worries about your pitch count or anything. Well, I shouldn't say that, but you have no concerns in terms of stretching out your outing because you're only going 1 inning. Let it loose. Throw your fireballs all you want. I feel like that's what he needs. He just needs a little bit of freedom because as a starter, I think he has the moxie. He definitely has the talent, but does he have the stamina for the Yankees? Now, obviously, right now, the Yankees don't have the luxury of trying that experiment because they're low on starting pitching. But say we make a trade for a guy like for any of the pitchers we've mentioned, a trade, maybe Luis Gil's a candidate to maybe go in the bullpen. And if that goes wrong, you could always throw him back in the rotation. But you definitely could get a little crafty with what you got in the Yankees. You know, Ryan Yarbrough, he could go back and forth between the bullpen and rotation. Warren, maybe you could try out in the bullpen, have him be your long reliever. But I really like your Joe Ryan idea. This is someone who, at the trade deadline, I was a big fan of him. I was go get him, Yankees. That was my big name. Him, Willie Castro, who obviously didn't really pan out with the Cubs, who's still on the market, and Johan Duran. I was all ready to get all three of them. I would have given up Jones. I would have given up Dominguez. The thing with Joe Ryan, his AAV is only $3 million. It is ridiculously low for a pitcher of that caliber. I think it's going to take a decent prospect for the Twins to want to move Joe Ryan. So if the Yankees are comfortable, because I mean, I'd have to think about it, but I think I would be relatively comfortable with sending Spencer Jones possibly to Minnesota for Joe Ryan, just because Joe Ryan is one of the better starting pitchers in all of baseball. He's going to be on the world stage this February and March in the WBC. This is a really good pitcher who, like you said, he has consistency. He has experience at the big league level. Knock on wood, but if you trade for Joe Ryan, there will really should not be any worries with what this guy should do. He'll be holding down that rotation. And by the end of the All-Star break, when we're all set to go for the second half of the season, you're telling me my rotation could look like Cole, Freed, Rodon, Joe Ryan, and Cam Schlittler, and then maybe you could try and experiment with Luis Seal and Will Warren, or you can even send them off somewhere in a trade. Sign me up. And that's not even making a huge free agent signing. This is conservative for the payroll because his AAV is only $3 million. And this is a really good move for the Yankees. The only thing is you have to make it worthwhile for the Twins because this is someone I feel like they're kind of making it known that they want to build a little bit of a core around him. They didn't ship him this trade deadline. I think they do see the talent in him. But like you said, only 1 year left after 2020. I believe actually 2028 is his free agent year. There might
Okay.
be I believe there's an option between 27 and 28, either player or club option. But this is a guy who the Yankees I feel like could love, and I just really see a Joe Ryan being a catalyst for success in this Yankee rotation.
Yeah, pending the price tag, I think he fits the profile of what they need for sure. And you talked about bullpen options. I think they're, I think in terms of identifying the tweeners, I like to say guys that you're going to flip back and forth between rotating in the rotation and potentially going back into the bullpen as a reliever. They have Yarbrough, they have Blackburn back in the fold. I think that's good for now. I mean, that's plenty enough, especially because they're seasoned in doing that exact thing. It's a foreign territory for some other pitchers, which could end up being pretty dicey. It could backfire on you. But as far as addressing the starting rotation, yes, I think you're always. I think every team is always looking for that controllable young pitcher who's maybe flashed some serious skill on the mound, and maybe you think about putting together a package that could, make you feel pretty, pretty squirmish and giving it up, but you got to give up to get. But I think in this case, where the Yankees are with the names that they have on the shelf, at least to start the year, I wouldn't go that young route. I would be more inclined to try and identify a Joe Ryan type and go after that.
Now, one last thing, Justin,
Hmm.
before we go off air. This is something I haven't seen discussed a lot. Maybe it's not the biggest issue in the world for the Yankees, but that's shortstop. Anthony Volpe, the torn labrum, he's going to be out for a little bit of time. So at short, you're probably having a mix of Cabby and Oswaldo. How comfortable are you with that for shortstop for the Yankees? Could you possibly see them getting a new shortstop? I mean, obviously the big name is Bo Bichette, which I don't think is that likely for the Yankees, but could you see them bringing in just like a middle of the road guy to just hold his ground a little bit? Could you see Jose Caballero be that guy, Oswaldo? Where do you stand on shortstop? Because it's definitely a little bit of an issue just having somewhat of a vacancy there, because I really don't believe, as much as I love the guy, I don't know if Jose Caballero is an everyday shortstop for the Yankees.
I think they have. I think they have what they're going to go with on the roster. I truly do. I think there's going to be a combination of Caballero, Cabrera, maybe even Rosario, given a sporadic spell to someone. I cannot see them obtaining a shortstop unless it is such a situation that is too good to be true, and it's an offer that's too good to refuse. I think they're going to hold it down with some combination of those players until Anthony Volpe comes back. And I do not think they're just going to hand over shortstop to Anthony Volpe when he's healthy. I think he's going to have to fight for it. I think that's healthy. I think that's good. But I think the Yankees are at the point where shortstop could be anyone's position for any length of time in the season. They have to show that they want it. And I think that's where we are at in 2026 with the shortstop position for the Yankees.
Yeah, I mean, definitely this is an interesting offseason, Justin. I think it's gonna get a lot more interesting after obviously the holiday season swings around. We get into January, February. We see what happens with these Japanese guys coming overseas. I know the windows start closing the 4th and the 5th of January, so a lot more is gonna happen. But I'm definitely intrigued to see what kind of talks heat up with the Yankees trade wise, where we're at. I want to get more of a concrete timeline, especially with Cole and Rodon. We still don't really have a date in mind, which would help. But I'm really excited. Obviously, right now it's kind of boring. There's no baseball being played. Definitely looking forward. Yankees, Giants, opening night for the 2026 MLB season. Super excited for that one. But thank you, Justin, for coming on, doing the show, even in the midst of all your holiday shopping. We're here on December 22nd, so we're definitely in that holiday grind. But I just wanted to extend my gratitude to you. You've been a great mentor. You've been guiding me a little bit through this journey in the sports media world, and I could not be more appreciative of that. And this is just a great example of that, giving me your time today for a fantastic show, man. Thank you.
Short, you do a great job, my bud, and I appreciate you having me on. Happy holidays to you. Happy holidays to all your listeners as well. And happy and healthy New Year to everyone. And like you mentioned, quiet time right now. It'll only get noisier from here. So we will definitely have a lot more activity for this Yankees off season, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Have a great day. Happy holidays, and let's go, Yankees.